We've got a charged atmosphere for two rivals in the East Division. It's the Moonshine Throwdown. Marshall and Western Kentucky.
Intercepted by Key, and Key has one man and beat. A nice cut move. Edwards can't get him. Key takes it all the way. A pick six for Devin Key.
Here comes Talik Keaton to the sideline midfield. He's to the 40, gets a block, and he is gone! Touchdown, Marshall!
So please join me in welcoming the 21st head coach in WKU football history, Tyson Helton.
And Marshall's going to finish the year 9-4 and champions of the 2018 Gasparilla Bowl, the sixth consecutive bowl win for the Marshall Thundering Herd.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. Trace joins me. It's time to wrap up the Gasparilla Bowl that saw the Herd face UCF in what we all thought was basically an uphill battle, and it really was. It was a dreary, rainy, kind of cruddy day for the most part in Tampa. I went to the game. The experience was a lot of fun. I had my oldest son with me. We had a good time. Got to link up with some good friends once again. And, just enjoy some Herd football as best you can in a 48-25 loss. Marshall ends the season 8-5, 6-2 in conference, slightly underperforming from the season before, which was a 9-win season. The game itself, we said, Trace, from the outset when we did the preview, we could see this game go a number of ways. A UCF blowout, a close UCF win, or a close Marshall win. Really, we didn't see the possibility of a Herd blowout coming to fruition unless there were just a ton of turnovers by UCF. And, of course, that didn't happen. But we did say Marshall really wouldn't stand a chance if something happened and they came out of the gate and had, a couple of turnovers and spotted UCF 14 points or 10 points, and that is exactly what happened. Let's talk about the indicators, then we'll talk about the game a little bit, get your synopsis, and then we'll do some stats. Yardage, 587 for UCF, 361 for the Herd. Time of possession, actually, Marshall edges UCF 32 minutes, 20 seconds to 27 minutes, 40 seconds. But, of course, again, that speaks to what we talked about in the preview, that UCF is a quick strike offense. First downs, 25-19 in favor of UCF, and turnovers, oh, my Lord, 5 turnovers for the Herd and 1 for UCF. Now, the game started off with Marshall receiving the opening kick and, really didn't pan out too well for the Herd. Actually, in the first quarter, and let's call it the first quarter and one play, okay, because the fourth turnover occurred in the first play of the second quarter. 4 turnovers for Marshall in the first quarter and the first play of the second quarter. A 39-yard pick six that put UCF on the board just 56 seconds into the game. Later, about midway through the first quarter, what in the hell was Marshall thinking kind of trick play that ended up being a 45-yard fumble return for a touchdown. I don't know what that was. The bright spot for the Herd in the first half was Micah Abraham going 75 yards on a pick six to set a Gasparilla Bowl record for longest interception return, breaking the previous record of the 39-yard pick six that took place in the first minute of the game. By the way, that 48-25 score is the highest score in Gasparilla Bowl in the, relatively short bowl games history. 24-7 was the score at halftime. Marshall just couldn't. Actually, they were really fortunate just to have 24 points against them with 4 freaking turnovers in the first half. The defense played pretty well. I mean, considering, the 8 ball they were behind. And in the second half, it wasn't that bad. Marshall managed to put up 18 points. I mean, they only gave up 24, so, whatever. But, even still, for the longest stretch, even in the second half, it did not feel like Marshall was just knocked out of the game. It felt like if they could catch a break or two, they could be right in it. And it looked like they were going to make a move, and then we saw the 5th turnover, and that was really that. I mean, it's just disappointing. The Herd couldn't take care of the football, and that's what did them in. They dug an early hole. And started to dig out. They just ultimately couldn't, and then a late turnover or two just sunk them. I'm sure you watched the game. So from your point of view, I know you've got some things to say. How about the Gasparilla Bowl? I mean, it was, I don't know how to describe it. This was just so not your average type Marshall game, but it's just almost a worst case scenario from the get-go, that they tried to patch back together. So from your point of view, how about the Gasparilla Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it went basically like I thought it would. I mean, to an extent. I mean, I didn't really think Marshall would have 5 turnovers or 4 turnovers in basically one quarter. But, as far as the margin of victory, it's about what I expected. I mean, I said 45-20, so it was roughly in the neighborhood. I mean, if you just watch the game, and everybody's saying it all year long, when Marshall goes up against these high-caliber teams, you can see they just don't have the team speed that the other teams have. I mean, UCF has much better team speed than Marshall does. Everybody's been saying it all year. Marshall just does not have a lot of game changers offensively and a lot of guys that can, turn the corner, so to speak. I don't know. They really need to hit that recruiting in the next couple of years. But as far as this game itself goes, yeah. I mean, I said that Marshall's bowl streak with Doc Holliday was in jeopardy, and everybody thought that. There's no doubt about it. I mean, first series of the game, 3rd play, it's a pick 6. You pretty much knew at that point, well, good game, good effort, it's over. At that point, you just knew. And then the fact that they only scored 7 points in the first half, and it was because of pick 6. I mean, the offense, again, just like the whole season, basically letting everything down. I mean, that's what the offense has done all year. No offense, but they've been very let down this year. I mean, there was an article that I think I texted you, and it was talking about the ceiling. There's no ceiling for the Marshall offense this year. What a load of that team. Miami Hurricanes just fired their offensive coordinator in a year in which he averaged 25.7 points per game, his offense. Marshall probably didn't even average that many. So, I mean, it's just not a good – I mean, I'm just sick and tired of the offense being so average and mediocre. But, they really had chances in this game. I mean, even in the first half, with the turnovers and all the miscues and stuff, the defense was keeping them in the game, and it was 21-7, and Marshall had the ball times, and you're like, okay, well, maybe they can come down here and make it interesting. You thought that could happen, but then second half, I mean, the defense just ended up kind of folding a little bit. I mean, UCF speed, and they started clicking more in the second half offensively. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that the rain stopped. I think that probably affected a lot, because UCF's offense finally got into gear, and Marshall's offense sort of did. I mean, they put up 18 points in the 3rd quarter, but outside of that, they did not. Here's the thing about that. They scored 18 points in the 3rd quarter. Outside of that, the offense did not score a single point in any other quarter. Yeah. So you just can't expect to win a game against a team that averages 43 points a game, a team that runs the 6th most plays in the FBS, scoring 18 points in one quarter and no points in any other quarter. I mean, it's just period. You ain't got a chance. I mean, if it wasn't for the pick 6, they would have been completely out of the game in the first half. So, yeah, it's disappointing. I mean, the bowl streak was something that was one of the last grasping straws that some fans wanted to cling to, and now it's gone. So it's like, well, okay. So I don't know. It's disappointing, and disappointing way to end a pretty disappointing season. So I don't know. There you go.
Well, this was really a kind of a tale of two halves. Marshall shot themselves in the foot all the first half, and even when they managed to move the ball and get within striking distance, they'd cough it up again, or they'd get down there and they'd be forced to punt or whatever it was. And Marshall lived inside their own 20 for a long time, a lot of the game, and UCF hovered around midfield for a lot of the game. So you just can't expect to give a team like that type of opportunity all day long and, be able to overcome the adversity that you dug for yourself. And you're right. This UCF team had a lot of team speed. And I think, I don't want to say it was underestimated. It's just like, man, no matter who they're throwing it to, the guy's got speed. So yeah. It became cumbersome in the second half. We see the play that is one of Marshall's bread and butter plays, which is like the swing pass or just a little quick strike, or I don't know. I don't want to say quick strike, just the quick out there to the wide receiver that, Marshall normally gains 5 or 6 yards on, and UCF ran it once and it went 75 yards for a touchdown. It's just one of those things. It was an uphill battle for the Herd, and they did not do themselves any favors with all the turnovers. But let's talk stats. Isaiah Green, 9 of 23 for 173 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions for just a 16.8 QBR. I can't recall the second interception in my head, but the first one was totally not his fault.
No,
that hit Obialo in the hands and went right through his hands for the pick six. At all. Alex Thompson did come into the game, and he actually provided a little bit of spark to the Herd when Green went down there for a couple of series. We were kind of unsure if he was going to come back in the game, to be honest with you. And Thompson goes 2 for 2 for 21 yards. He did seem to provide a little bit of a spark. Like I said, thought maybe he would see a little bit more game action, but it just was not to be. Brendan Knox, leading rusher, 26 carries, 103 yards, but unfortunately did not find the end zone and did put it on the ground once. Willie Johnson was basically the 2-hit wonder, 1 reception, 70 yards for a touchdown, and 1 rush. That end around seemed to have worked every time they ran it this season, which was only 4 or 5 times. 1 rush, 25 yards. Armani Levias, 3 receptions, 67 yards, and 1 fumble. Defensively, Najee Johnson is your guy, 10 tackles, 7 solo. Marquise Couch, a great day along defensive line, 9 tackles, 8 solo, and a quarterback hurry. And, of course, the aforementioned Mike solo and 1 interception for a touchdown. Special teams, Justin Rowasser, way to go out for the a recently anointed kicker of the decade into some certain online polls. 1 of 1 from
at the Herd Zone.
50. Oh, that's right. Go ahead. Nice plug. At the Herd Zone. 1 of 1 for 50 yards and 2 of 2 on extra points. And then Robert Lefevre, 4 punts, 191 total yards, 47.8 average, and the big walloping hit stick tackle on one of those attempted UCF punt returns. He actually absolutely kind of laid the dude out there. So, all right, let's get past this one. I know we don't want football season to end per se, but dude, this is not one that I want to linger on and have this taste in my mouth for a while. But unfortunately, we're 250 some odd days basically from Herd football. So let's talk about grades. Grades for the Gasparilla Bowl. And of course, we always start with the quarterback. Isaiah Green, 9 of 23, 173 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. What you got?
Oh, I don't have a very good one again. I mean, it's 3 straight weeks. Not good. I gave him a D. I mean, it's just not – it's a bad trend. I mean, all 3 games were in the elements and rain and stuff, but my God, it was bad. Sorry. I mean, 9 for 23, well under 50% completion, 173 yards, and most of those yards were in the third quarter. I would like to know how many yards he actually had outside of the third quarter, because I feel like most of them were in that third quarter.
Well, let me break in there for a second, because I was standing with a gentleman watching the game that I'd previously not met, of course, and we just happened to be talking, and he said the same thing at some point. And I remember looking it up on my phone, and Green had something like 59 yards or something like that. This was in the first half or something like that. And he had like 59 yards or something like that, and 32 of them came on that play to Levias that he got
fumbled, the
ball punched out. Yeah.
So
it was a very rough first half for Isaiah Green.
Yeah, I mean, just rough stuff. I mean, the 1 touchdown, 2 picks. I mean, the pick 6 was just a flat out drop pass. I mean, we all have seen that. It was just a drop. You can't really count, hold that against Green. And then his QBR, 16.8. I mean, he made more plays in the second half. He made some plays, especially in that third quarter. He had the rushing touchdown, but the first half was pretty brutal, and everything pretty much outside of the third quarter was pretty brutal, just to be frank about it. And I was sitting here looking up some of his last 3 games, the last 3 games that Marshall's played this season, and they were all in the rain, and they finished those games with a 1-2 record. He completed a total of 24 out of 60 passes with 2 touchdowns, and what is it? 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. It's not going to win anything. Like, you're not going to beat good teams playing that poorly. I mean, I want to see him do as good as he possibly can, and I think everybody wants that, but it's just not there. And then when they put in Alex Thompson, I mean, he gave him a semi-spark, and then whenever a reporter asked Doc about that, he got real short with him and got real kind of salty about it, of course, because Doc doesn't like any hard questions. But, I mean, Green is just, I don't know, not a very good, so I'm going to have to say D.
Yeah, I hate to add insult to injury, but he also did fumble a snap. He managed to recover,
Yeah.
But it's one of those we talked about in the preview. You can't have that. You can't have that wasted play with playing a team like UCF. So offensively, 25 points. That's the season average, basically, despite 5 turnovers and 361 total yards. You do possess the game for over 30 minutes, but whatever. So what do you got offensively?
Yeah, I got another D. I mean, it wasn't – the only reason I say D, though, is because of all the turnovers. Like, if it wasn't for the turnovers, it probably would have been more like a C-ish, low B, something like that, because, like, they did a decent job. But, like, man, 5 turnovers, you have absolutely no chance to beat anybody with 5 turnovers, especially a UCF team that's just got so much talent. But, I mean, 25 points, and – 18 of those were actually on the offense. They only touched, 7 points was the pick 6. So the offense only scored 18 points realistically. 361 total yards, like you said, 194 passing, 167 rushing. Brendan Knox managed to top 100 yards, which honestly, I don't really remember him getting enough yards to have 100, but I guess he did get quite a few carries as we expected. So, like, that's how good he is. Like, even when he's not having a game that really stands out per se, he's still – so good game from Knox. But, I mean, the 5 turnovers, you can't overcome that. I mean, pick 6 on the first series. Armani LaVasse has a huge play. The next series, he fumbles. Just too many mistakes and miscues. So, like, if it doesn't really matter if you put up they put up, I would say, a decent amount of points, decent at best, and they put up a decent amount of total yards, but 5 turnovers negates anything that was decent about the offense. So it's D for me.
Yeah, even if they chop 2 of those turnovers off, more than likely you're going to have more points on the board.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like I said, pick which 2 you want to take out, and either they're going to remove points from the UCF score or they're potentially going to add points to the Marshall score and make this a much closer game. So this was absolutely a killer. And one note about Brendan Knox, dude, he was the only guy that defense had to worry about because you could tell. I mean, from the stands, I could tell that they had zero respect for the Marshall passing offense. So they knew they could just key in on Brendan Knox and just whatever the Herd offensive passing game could muster, they were willing to deal with. And you could see that that was absolutely their game plan, UCF's game plan defensively, and it worked. So how about defensively for the Herd? I mean, you can't really say the defense gives up 48 points because, 14 of them at least are direct results from turnovers. You got a scoop and score and a pick 6. So, but still, take away 14, that's only 34. You're looking at a much better looking score if that's the case. But, we don't want to, we're not trying to, sugarcoat things here, but can't blame the defense for those points anyway.
No, you can't. I mean, but overall, this defensive grade this game is kind of a tale of 2 halves. Now, I didn't separate it, grade per half. I just overalled it because that's obviously what we're here to do. But overall, I went with the C-. I mean, if you look at the first half, they held their own. Like, they really did. They were put in some bad situations, 4 turnovers in the first half. They managed to hold their own, only giving up 24 points in that first half. And 14 of those were on the turnovers. So they really only gave up 10 points realistically in that first half. So that's a solid game right there defensively. And I would have given the first half about a B or a B plus, maybe even an A-, something like that, because they really held their own. The second half, it wasn't very good. I mean, once the rain stopped and UCF really got going, they just really couldn't be stopped unless they just kind of took their foot off the gas. So, I mean, I don't know what I would give the second half grade defensively, but it'd be pretty low. It'd be like D-ish probably. But, I mean, 48 points, like you said, not all those points were on them. 587 yards. That's a lot there. 310 rushing. That blew my mind when I saw that stat. I did not think UCF had enough to amass that kind of rushing yardage on that defense. They really did a number with that. And then, of course, the defense did get the pick six, which gave them their only touchdown in the first half. Mike Abraham, really good there. Solid first half. Like I said, not so solid second half. So overall, this grade, if you offset or if you take into consideration both halves, it's about average, slightly below average, just because of all the yards they gave up. So I'll say C minus.
Yeah, in the second half, they really started to get gashed a little bit on the ground. I mean, UCF had, five backs or a quarterback that had over a 5.7 yard average. That was the lowest. You run down, and we're not talking about like one carry for, no. We're talking like 14 carries for 80 yards, 9 carries for 74 yards, 9 carries for 61, 7 carries for 58. The outlier there is 2 carries for 40 yards. But still, I mean, they have a lot of weapons on the ground, and we previewed that coming in. They had 4 backs over 500 yards, and they rotated in that quarterback, that second quarterback, and he's actually the one that threw the pick six. But he's a little bit more of a runner. It was just a tall ask. That's all it was. Golly, if you've got could you imagine having 5 guys like Brendan Knox or maybe slightly below, each guy slightly below, they're equally as dangerous. So when one gets tired, you just bring another one in. There's no plays off for the defense. That's a tough task. All right. So special teams, pretty strong, not too bad. Rowasser goes from 50. Lefevre has a great day, gets himself a big hit. I didn't see anything overly terrible about kick coverage, which hopefully we won't ever have to talk about again. So what do you got for special teams this week?
Yeah, special teams I thought was by far the best overall unit of the game. I gave them an A. I mean, they were really solid, really good again. I mean, this is a couple, 2 or 3 really nice games they've had in a row in bad elements.
In the rain.
Yep. In the rain. And you could say that like the rain and the elements like that probably could affect the special teams as much or more than any other unit because, all the kicking that goes into it, all the fielding and all that. I mean, that's a lot of stuff. And Warwasser 1 of 1 on field goals, and that was a 50-yard field goal. I mean, he absolutely drilled it right down the middle, and he had about 5-10 yards to spare. So just killed that kick. And then Lefevre averaged nearly 48 yards per punt. That's probably his highest or the highest he's had all year as far as punts, yards per game. I would say that might be the highest he's had all year. And then Talik Keaton had a 22-yard punt return. That was really solid. That was a nice one. I can't remember when it was, but I remember it happening. I jotted it down. Good kickoffs. They booted him deep. The kickoff coverage didn't have to do anything because a lot of kicks were deep, and they non-returnable kicks didn't actually allow any return. So that was really good for Warwasser there too. So special teams, I mean, they were really good. I mean, I have to give them an A. One point though, I was going to say when you were talking about the UCF players and offensively they had like 6 or 7 guys that didn't play in this game. So like that even makes it kind of worse for Marshall, but they had some of their best players just sitting out voluntarily. So, but special team, but notwithstanding, they're an A.
Well, yeah, their single best offensive weapon did not play. The wide receiver that had, almost 1,300 yards on the season. But so what? Take it when you can get it. That's just bowl season,
Yeah, it is.
That's just bowl season. So how about the coaching effort for the Gasparilla Bowl?
Yeah, not real strong. I gave him a D. I mean, just not third game in a row. You're in the rain, and they look worse prepared for the rain this game than they did the previous 2. Like you literally, their previous 2 games before the bowl game were both in rain, and you have all that time in between the last regular season game and the bowl game to prepare for it. You should look ahead and know that it's going to rain at that point. And that's what they look like. I mean, absolutely atrocious how they looked. I mean, the fumbling, they just were not ready to play in those elements. It just did not seem like they had a clue how to handle it. And it makes even less sense because they had played the last 2 freaking games in rain. I didn't understand that. I noticed other people saying it. That one just really set it behind the 8 ball right off the bat. I mean, they came out flat. I mean, point blank, they did. Play calling was okay. It was kind of iffy. I mean, it's been iffy all year, but I mean, it was kind of iffy. They tried to throw in a couple trick plays, but they weren't used they weren't timely at all. Like they were in bad, they caught him in bad situations, bad moments of the game, and then of course the one trick play ended up leading to a fumble return. Or even though I still think that pass went forward, but like I don't know, it really doesn't matter. It was kind of iffy, but I thought at first after I saw it went forward, but like it really didn't. It didn't have any effect in the game because UCF obviously won handily, but. I mean, they came out. I'll give them credit. They got him to come out at halftime strong. They put up 18 points in the third quarter. That's probably their most third quarter points they put up all year, if I think about it, or at least against FBS team it is probably. So that was good. But one thing though that a lot of fans were talking about, and like I said earlier, that Doc got asked this question is, did they think about sticking with Alex Thompson when Green got injured or dinged up a little bit? And Doc was real short and defensive about it and like whatever. But I mean, as much as Green has struggled in the last 3 games, in this game, I might have rolled a dice a little bit with Alex Thompson, especially considering that's his last game. I mean, it'd be kind of a cool story if he could miraculously come out there and lead him to a big bowl win over UCF. I mean, I'm not saying they would have won, but like that would have been pretty awesome to see. And I think the offense could have possibly moved the ball better. I mean, it's a very small sample size what he did in this game, obviously. But at this point, what do you have to lose? It's a bowl game. You're not playing for no championship, God knows. So why not try to throw out all their wrinkles out there and try to see what you can do? But I mean, of course, they didn't. They just stuck with they just beat the dead horse. Isaiah Green, he's been struggling really mightily the last few games. It's like a broken record. But I mean, I don't know. Coaching, I wasn't real impressed with it. Obviously, this was not the typical Marshall coaching performance in a bowl game. I mean, maybe it had more to do with the opponent than it did anything else, but I wasn't impressed at all. So D.
Yeah, it was left a lot to be desired, that's for sure. So overall, I'm not feeling a strong grade coming here. I mean, when special teams is the only thing you've got to lift your average, it's not looking good. So what do you got overall?
Yeah, I'm kind of like unsure which. I wrote down one grade and then I marked it out and wrote down another one. So like kind of in between these 2 grades, but I ended up settling for D+. That's kind of what I went with. At first I wrote down C-, but then I was like, no, this was kind of a rough game. I mean, and the fact that like it capped off a disappointing season in which they underachieved didn't help either. So, I mean, D+, it seems definitely fair. I mean, special teams was the only good thing they had in this game as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there was a couple guys having some good games. Brendan Knox, Abraham, a few guys like that, but not much to brag about here. Disappointing loss, just like the Charlotte game, Middle Tennessee, everything. So D+.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, let's get past 2019, and it's a bummer. I was really hoping that Marshall could kind of beat the odds and come out and kind of just shock the world, so to speak, and get that 9th win. That would have really been great, but it just did not happen. So here we are, 8-5, final record for the Herd in 2019. There are several playmakers that will be departing because of exhaustion of eligibility. And of course, as we get farther along and closer to spring ball and things like that, there are always departures from the team and transfers and this, that, and the other. And of course, there are always transfers into the team. So the roster will be very much in flux for the next number of months. So we will not know what the 2020 Herd will look like for quite a while. But the big question now, since we don't have any more games to play, and I can't ask you, what do we know about the Herd after 2019, because we don't know anything, because it'll be a completely different team next year. There will undoubtedly be some departures of coaches, because coaches always take new jobs. As a matter of fact, as we record today, news broke earlier that Marshall safeties coach and recruiting coordinator Mike Trier has taken a position on the Florida State staff. So there will be at least one vacancy to fill. And it never surprised me if there will be more. So we'll see how it goes. But so my question now is it's simple, Trace. What now? What now for the Herd? What do you do to get over the hump for 2020? What do you do if you're the AD, if you're the head coach, if whatever you want to be? What do you do? What now? What gets you over the hump? To win a conference title next year. You have absolute power. What now?
Oh, well, got a couple things in mind that would help. First of all, they have to recruit so hard this offseason. I mean, like, it's got to be like as hard as they've ever recruited, as far as I'm concerned, because I mean, everybody's been saying it. I've noticed it. I mean, I'm sure we all have. The team speed just wasn't there this year. I mean, it wasn't there. If you think back to the successful Marshall teams of the past, think about how much speed and quickness and athleticism and playmaking ability their offensive weapons had. I mean, this year, can you name really more than 2 players in the offense that had legit, consistent playmaking ability? Because the answer is no, you can't. I mean, it was Brendan Knox and then like maybe Armani Levias or Xavier Gaines. That was pretty much it. I mean, all the receivers were so inconsistent this year. You couldn't really trust them, and they're all young. Obi didn't even play until the Louisiana Tech game. I mean, they just didn't have a lot of guys. So they really need to get some team speed in there. I mean, think back to even just the, like we always talk about, that 2014 team. I mean, look at all the weapons they had offensively. I mean, all those receivers, just big-time talent. Tight ends, of course, the running game was as strong as it's ever been at Marshall. They had a complete offensive team. This year, they were too reliant on 1 or 2 players offensively. They need to go out and recruit hard. Try to get the players in here. I mean, they've already started with the early signing period with some, JUCO guys and everything. And I'm not a big recruiting guy, honestly. Like, I really don't keep up with it that much. But like, I think they really need to go that direction because, I mean, honestly, if you would like, for lack of a better phrase, put a gun to my head right now and ask me what I think Marshall's going to be next year record wise, with what they have coming back right now, not including whoever's going to play that wasn't here this year or whatever. If you asked me what the record's going to be next year, looking into that non-conference schedule and looking at the overall schedule, I would say like 6-6 or 7-5. Like, I just don't see them being that great next year unless drastic stuff happens. Like Isaiah Green improves, they get more players in there, all the receivers improve, the running game better. I mean, they have a tough non-conference schedule that they could easily lose 3 out of those 4 games. And it wouldn't be that shocking if they lost all 4, to be honest. I mean, East Carolina has not been very good, but they're definitely trending.
They're better. They're better.
They're better, and they're definitely trending upward. They've been putting up a lot of points at times this year. So on the road at East Carolina is going to be tough. On the road at Ohio, I mean, we all know how Marshall struggles at Ohio. They can't play there to save their lives. I mean, Ohio is not going to probably be as good next year because they're losing Nathan Rourke and whoever. But like, I don't trust that game. And then home against Pitt and Boise State, I don't trust that either. So I mean, they really need to get off to a good start because it could set them up for major problems if they start 1-3 or 0-4 at a conference. They really need to try to split those non-conference games. And then my other thing I would do, and we've talked about it before the show, we've texted, I'm sure, about it and everything. Marshall needs a quarterbacks coach badly. They need a quarterbacks coach that's solely dedicated to coaching quarterbacks. Now maybe they could throw a coach in there and give him another role, but like, I just don't. If you think about it, I remember bringing it up when Cato developed so greatly from his freshman year to his sophomore year. A lot of that can be attributed to Tony Peterson being there and helping him. And I believe you said it before the show that Peterson at that time was co-offensive coordinator. Am I correct?
Yeah, he was.
Co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. And the reason that it probably worked so well is Peterson didn't have as much of a say in play calling as he did coaching the quarterbacks. Because if you're the only offensive coordinator that you have, you're not giving the quarterback development your undivided attention at all. Peterson could do that. He could do that a lot more than guys now. I mean, I don't know. They really, I mean, maybe it would be for nothing. Maybe Cato's just better. I mean, than Green, obviously, but maybe if you have the right guy in there or a guy that can give him more attention on footwork, mechanics, all that kind of stuff that everybody's criticizing Green on, maybe he can make a jump because this year, you just look at his passer rating, he actually got worse than he was last year. So, like, I don't know. I want to see get more effort put into developing a quarterback because we've all said that Marshall can't win a conference championship if they have below average quarterback play. It just, history tells you that. I mean, that's how it has to be. He has to improve 14 touchdowns, 15 touchdowns, and 10 picks a year is not going to do it. It's not going to win you a conference title. It's just not. So they need that. They need to recruit heavily. They need more team speed.
Well, when you play 13 games a year and 14 if you hope to make it to a conference title game, you can't have 14 touchdown passes in the year. You can't average 1 per game. You have to be averaging 2 or 2+ per game. That's just kind of the way it is. And on another level, you have to have somebody that you have to equally worry about to open holes for Brendan Knox, right? You can't allow teams to do what UCF did, and that's just key on Knox. And, we'll see if the pass game starts to hurt us or not. But I'm just curious what Trace says what now, but that's not bad. I mean, I think Marshall has like 9 or 10 scholarships open or something after the early signing period. So they always tend to do that. And, in that, latter half or the latter part of the signing period when, traditional signing day happened, that's when a lot of guys can kind of swoop in. You can swoop in and get those guys that thought they were going SEC or thought they were going, ACC or Big Ten because the offers just aren't there anymore. The class is full. There's nowhere for you to go. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, interesting. So let's move right along. I mean, we don't have anything else to talk about. You talked about, what you would do next. So let's close out the season. Let me have your final thoughts for the 2019 football season. Get it all out and, let's have a little therapeutic session here so you can get it off your chest and you can look forward to maybe watching some more competitive basketball now that the Herd's got a new weapon. And, we'll start talking about football here in a little while. I won't say months because I'm sure we'll be linking up and podcasting about football as well. So final thoughts time, Trace.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of separate these final thoughts into 2 parts. One part's going to be just about the season, and then the other part's going to be something that I've kind of been thinking and I haven't said, and I kind of want to get my thoughts out on it. But looking at just the season perspective, I mean, this is a weird year because, 8-5 if you just look at it on paper, it looks pretty good. I mean, a winning record. They beat some good teams. I mean, they beat a 10-win Louisiana Tech team, albeit minus a few key players, but they beat that team. They beat an 11-win conference champion FAU that blew out SMU, a very good American team, in the bowl game. So, they had some impressive wins, and obviously Marshall, talent-wise, when they were playing at the best, was as good or better than anybody in the conference. They had the most first-team all-conference selections, 8. They had all kinds of pieces in place, and they had to win 2 games to play for a championship, and as we know now, they couldn't do it. And that's just a bad trend. And that's the games that make or break the head coach. You have to manage to pull that out. You have to get your team to win those games. And unfortunately, they didn't. If you look at it, I think I said on the last episode that if Marshall would lose the bowl game, then I would say that season's about a C or a C+. And that's where I am. It was about a C+ season. They beat a couple high-quality teams. They beat a good Western Kentucky team, but they lost to 4-8 Middle Tennessee, and they lost to 7-6 Charlotte, who was very average. So just bad losses that kept them out of a championship yet again. So disappointing there. That you want to see them finally go to the hump, but they just can't seem to. So it's unfortunate, but that's just where we are right now with Marshall as a football program. And over the last 5 years, I looked this up too. Since their last conference title, from 2015 onwards, Marshall's average win per season and loss per season is 7.6 wins and 5.2 losses. So they're a 7-5 program over the last 5 years. Not real good. That's not very good. People can say, well, that's not bad for an average. No, it's not that good because one of those years was 10-3 and then the other was 3-9. So if you just take those out of the equation, then it's the same every year. It's just that's not where they need to be. And then as my other little tangent here, I'll get into a couple points I wanted to bring up that I think are kind of big factors as to the state of Marshall football and the state of the fan base right now. All right, so there's a lot of obviously disarray with the fan base right now. A lot of people aren't seeing eye to eye. We all know this. there's been a lot of stuff going on about the fans and what they think and everything. And I think that a lot of this dates back to the 2016 football season. Now, we know how bad that season went, right? I mean, 3-9, it was bad. It was the worst year they've maybe ever had at the FBS level, at least post 97. It was bad. But what people still bring this up, but what people really don't think enough about is on Mike Hamrick's radio show that year in October, where he basically made the comment that if you're not a Big Green member, then your opinion doesn't matter, and that they don't want you around if you're not financially supporting the program and the athletic programs. That really, really, really started a bad trend. That really drove a stake right through the fan base. And I don't think the fan base has honestly recovered from that, because if you look at the last 3 seasons, 2017, 18, and 19, the attendances have not been very good at all. I mean, I don't think the fan base has gotten over that comment. I mean, I'm not saying that's the only reason. I mean, the on-field product, the fact that people say it's boring, and the fact that they can't play for the championship in the Conference USA has something to do with it. But, like, Mike Hamrick has not done a very good job at unifying and bringing the fan base together. Point blank, he has not. He's done some amazing stuff other than that. I mean, all the facilities and all the scheduling and all the stuff, we know how great he's done there. But as far as bringing a fan base together, he hasn't done a very good job, in my opinion. I mean, those comments that he made there, I think that really divided the fan base. And I don't think that they have gotten over that, some of those fans. So that is a problem. And then as far as the on-field product, one point I was going to bring up that I think can kind of attribute to the lack of championship success Marshall's had is the really bad attrition issue that they've had in years past. I remember I said to you, I think from 2015 to 2017, the attrition that Marshall suffered was absolutely horrible. I mean, they lost so many players from those 2 or 3 years. And I don't think there's a coincidence that 2016, the year in between those 3 years, it was their worst year. I don't think that's a coincidence. I mean, look at some of the receivers that they lost, like Angelo Jean Lewis. McManus left early. A.J. Leggett, the safety, got dismissed. Taekwon Lane got dismissed. So many key players that were big-time playmakers for Marshall just got dismissed or left the program or what have you. I mean, there's a lot of problems going on with attrition, and I don't think they've quite recovered from that either, because, I mean, if they had those players for those few years, maybe Marshall wins the conference at some point. Who knows? So, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff going on right now with football. I mean, it's a very hot topic, obviously. I mean, it's very, very polarizing topic right now. So that's just kind of some of the stuff I want to get out here as on the final thoughts. So
well, it's always going to be a hot topic in Huntington because the community is what it is, and that's they eat, sleep, and breathe herd football. They just do, and it's not out of the realm of possibility or whatever you want to call it that they want a winner. What team doesn't want a winner? What community doesn't want a winner? Everybody does, and there are so many fans that don't really want to hear the opinion of anybody else that differs from their own. And just because it's different from yours doesn't make it wrong. Now, just because it's different from yours doesn't make it right either.
Right.
But still, everybody's entitled to be a fan how they want to be a fan. And that's a good point you made about the comments from 2016. I'd kind of forgotten about that. I mean, I knew it. I recall it happening, but I didn't remember when. And immediately I started thinking about, that like you get mad at the time, or somebody may get mad at the time when that was said and when that was done. And now you're mad, and now time goes by, and you may actually forget why you're mad, but you know why, but you still know you're mad,
Yep.
So it just continues to carry over and carry over and carry over. I don't know. It's not going to be an easy fix, but, and no fan base is ever going to be 100% happy, but I just don't think 7-5 is going to cut it in Huntington. If that's your average, if that's what you are as a team, for the past 5 years is 7-5, then that's not good enough, especially not in the Conference USA at all.
No.
I mean, it's just not going to cut it. You could schedule really, really hard in the out of conference, go 0-4 in the out of conference every year, and you still shouldn't be a 7-5 ball club in the Conference USA. If you're a good team, that's not what it should be.
No, I was going to say real quick, I found the comments for a screenshot that somebody had from the comments that Mike Hamrick had. It was October 27th, 2016. Marshall Athletics Twitter account tweeted these out. One of the quotes was, "We'll tune out the negative people. Those people aren't financial supporters and aren't Big Green members." So basically what he's saying is if you are negative in any way, you're not a financial supporter or you're not a Big Green member. Well, I hate to break it to you, Mike, but there's a lot of people that are Big Green members and financial supporters that are quote-unquote negative. Sorry to break it to you. And then another point is, if you're a supporter, you have every right to voice your opinion. If not, we don't want to hear it and don't want you around. We don't want you around. Like, he's literally telling people to go away. Like, that's what kind of, how do you, think you're going to, make a fan base happy when you're saying stuff like that? Like, that's, literally telling people to go away. That's saying if you're negative, if you say anything negative, then you're not a financial supporter. Well, you know what? I'm in the Big Green, so I'll say negative things. Am I not a fan for that? No, that's stupid. It's just athletic directors are supposed to be they're supposed to bring the whole unify the fan base, bring everybody together, give them something to look forward to and to rally around. That's driving a wedge between the fan base that people can say about Chuck Landon driving a wedge between the fan base and whoever or whatever. And he's had, his moments with stuff like that, some controversial stuff, but Mike Hamrick and some of these fans are driving the wedge. That's the point blank fact about it. They're telling people to stop showing up. They're telling people how to be fans. They're telling people how they should act and not act. They're telling them what they want. It's just, you can't be preachy and holier than thou about crap. I mean, sorry, that's just the way it is, in my opinion. He really dropped the ball with those comments, and so many people, unfortunately, fans have followed that mindset, and now it's like, oh, if you don't give every free cent you have to the Big Green, then you're lesser of a fan. Get off your damn high horse, people. Give me a break here.
Well, if you got to realize where you're at, man. You can't say that in a city like Huntington, who's trying to build a fan. You might be able to get away with something like that in Columbus or Tuscaloosa or Ann Arbor. So for every fan that says, I'm not coming back to these seats, there's 50 people that are dying to get that season ticket. You know what I mean? Right. You just have this massively huge, rabid fan base. And that's not what Marshall has. They have a very passionate fan base, but they're not huge. So you can't afford to drive, a third of the people away. What if they are great fans, but they just simply can't afford to, drop $100 and some a year? I mean, that's plausible. It's quite plausible, and there's nothing wrong with that, man. But it's just that's a touchy set of comments, and when you read them back verbatim like that, it's kind of really eye opening. I mean. They do not age well. I can't imagine a time when that would age fine. I just can't.
And attendances, quite frankly, in my opinion, at least from the numbers, attendances were better before those comments came out. I mean,
probably.
I'm not saying that's why people aren't showing up, but I'm saying that might have something to do with it. Just the mindset, the deluded mindset of some of these people. If you look back at some of the attendances, they were average 26, 27,000, whatever a game. Now they do lucky to even get 20,000, 25,000 for a game. It's a big difference.
Yeah, when you talk about 25, when you say 20,000, 25,000, that doesn't sound like a big disparity. But when you break that down into a percentage, and you're talking about 20% less people, that's a big difference. That's a huge difference. Gosh, you think any program in America, no matter what level, would love to be able to increase their attendance by 20% annually. Yep. That's amazing. It's just you're not in a position in a city, dealing with a fan base that you can just afford to kind of run people off. There's just not enough of them,
Nope.
that are in line for that season ticket to get vacated. Like I said, like in Columbus or Tuscaloosa or whatever. But all right. Well, I'm sure we will talk more football, but for now, let's get out of here. I'll let you get to whatever you got to get doing. Since we don't have Steven here, this is just kind of a herd-only episode. I'm going to let you solo it out with a go, whatever you want to say, and we'll see you when we see you.
Oh, you already know what I'm going to say. Go Herd, baby.
Go Herds. We'll see you when we see you. It's the Moonshine Throwdown podcast.